Сподіваюся, що ви будете слухати, тому що насправді сьогодні ми, напевно, найбільше плануємо говорити про ті речі, які найбільш вам можуть бути цікаві, тому що це про можливість залученості кожного до процесу використання відкритих даних для ефективного управління спадщиною, а цей процес включає в тому числі захист і збереження. Тому я думаю, сподіваюся, що це для вас буде приводом і вдосконалити свою англійську і почути цікаві корисні речі для вашого професійного зростання. Okay, so I'm sure today we'll have an interesting lecture concerning specific topic, how open data can be used for with people for effective management of cultural heritage. So, Bente, it's your floor.
It's my turn, yes. So thank you very much, Svetlana, and welcome everybody. I will try to speak not so fast, the best I can. And unfortunately, I have not had time to translate my slides, but I am sure we can provide those slides afterwards also in Ukrainian. And Svetlana, you are more than welcome to interrupt me to translate whenever you feel that this is necessary. And you too, Katarina, by the way, if you so feel. And then I encourage you all to ask questions in the chat. Don't be shy. I am sure that what I'm going to tell you now is going to be a little bit different than you normally hear in cultural heritage studies. I will try my best to give you a good overview. So I will start to share my screen. So my name is Bente Lilja Bye. I am one of the co-founder of Space for CC. I'm Norwegian, and I'm also running a company on Earth observations and research for a global community. So I've been doing that for quite a bit of time. I have a background from astrophysics, actually, and I have been a research director for the Norwegian Mapping Authority that you will understand is relevant for what I'm going to talk to you about today. So the title of this lecture is Empowering Cultural Heritage Management in Ukraine with Earth Observations and Citizen Science. And the context, of course, is that we are looking to, in Data4UA, we are looking for ways of training and looking to new education of cultural heritage managers. Is there a need to do something? Are there new technologies and methodologies specifically taking the situations that Ukraine unfortunately is in today? So what I'm going to talk about is as follows. I'm going to give you a little bit of context first. I can start immediately, by the way. So we are talking about cultural heritage. Now, cultural heritage in Ukraine is not only important for you who live in Ukraine, it's important for all of us. I can take an example, a personal example. There's a lot of emotions connected to cultural heritage. For instance, the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, remember when that was burning and how everybody in the world were reacting. It was not only the Parisians where the cathedral was placed that was, devastated and engaged. It was not only France and the French people, it was actually the entire globe who engaged and cared about that particular cultural heritage. It's just an example to show how much it means to us. So this is an important context. Another important context is then, of course, now you had the fire that was devastating in Paris. Now you in Ukraine, unfortunately, are living through another devastating experience and aggression from one of your neighbors. And that is having an impact on cultural heritage and how you are managing that as well. So this is the context. So cultural heritage management is necessary, be it peace or war. There are, the world we are living in is constantly changing. We have a lot of people visiting cultural heritage. We need to take care of these things that we love so much, just like our babies, right? It's something we care for, so it needs to be managed. And today I'm going to talk about how Earth observations can be helpful, well, actually are helpful already, and can be even more helpful if it's better integrated in the training of cultural heritage managers. So different types of Earth observations I will go through. And the same with citizen science. So citizen science is both a way of engaging citizens. It's also a way of collecting more data, and you will learn more about that as well. Excuse me. Then we have some tools that we can use, some digital tools. We are living in the era of digitalization, and Earth observations and citizen science information, data and information can be integrated in various digital tools. We will talk a little bit about that as well. So I'm sure that you are familiar with these sites. I'm not sure if you call it the 7 wonders of Ukraine. I found it on the internet. In either case, they are beautiful places. What I want you to recognize and to note here, except the beauty, is the different environments that where they are placed, and the different characters of this cultural heritage that you have. And this is, illustrating the context of a cultural heritage. And we will come back to that. So unfortunately, you have some unwanted changes. So changes is happening every time, but this is particularly unwanted changes. And the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine are gathering information about this effects due to the aggression by Russia. And you see the latest numbers I found on the ministry's page is 1,096 cultural heritage sites affected and 2,093 cultural infrastructure objects affected. So it's substantial, and that causes extra work and extra concern for cultural heritage managers. And how can we help? How can that possibly be helped? We have various ways that these changes are being impacted or on the cultural heritage sites. And I will, so when I'm talking about cultural heritage here, it's about monuments and buildings and not so much artifacts. It's more those things that we can observe from space or from the outside of buildings. And here you see a couple of examples of both indirect and direct impact. Of course, when you have drones and bombs that have a direct impact of buildings of cultural heritage. And you have also indirect, so you can hit a location close to the cultural heritage that indirectly impact your site through bombing. But you also have incidents, and you probably remember this, the Kakhovka dam that was destroyed and caused flooding from down the river. And that's also an example of an indirect impact of the conflict. And you see here, of course, already there's maps that show this. So this is Earth observations. This is an example of Earth observation. We have satellites taking pictures of the Earth, and you see that you can detect change. So the change on the right-hand side, you see definitely a change in the landscape itself. And you will also, with higher resolution, you can also see more detailed changes. But the point is that you can look at the Earth, you can look at the cultural heritage site and get an overview of the impact that will have on your cultural heritage. And on the right-hand side, sorry, the left-hand side, you see how the flooding, you can model the flooding based on the observations you do with space-based data. You can have models for how that water body is then distributed along the riverside, along the river, and that if you then have local sensors that measure the water level of the river, which we call ground-based data or in situ data, then you can you have models of how the water will affect those things along the river, also including cultural heritage sites, buildings or monuments. And also, by the way, we have cultural heritage nature sites as well. I should mention that because that's definitely one of the environmental impacts that this conflict are also impacting those nature cultural heritage sites. So I hope you understand that monitoring with Earth observations, we can get a better overview of what is happening on your around and on your cultural heritage. You need, when you get a satellite imagery, you get an overview of the situation. Then when you have local observations, you get a better detailed information. And typically the details are necessary for you to make decisions on how you will manage the cultural heritage that you are talking about. So those are the Earth observations. What I want you to remember here is that Earth observations are any type of monitoring, observation of the Earth, of the environment, of the cultural heritage. It can be from space, it can be from ground, it can be from planes, from drones, and also, measuring, for instance, the soil, the composition of the soil. This is relevant for when you have pollutants spread all over, for instance. So everything that measures something about the Earth, that's Earth observation. When you have a conflict to that degree that you are experiencing, it's very much similar to a disaster risk management situation. And disaster risk management cycle is for natural disaster is applicable in these situations. It can be transformed, and you see here at the bottom a reference to a publication, a scientific publication, where they have actually looked specifically to the resemblance between disaster risk management in general and specifically for cultural heritage monitoring. So how do we place Earth observations in this risk management cycle? Well, you see step number 1. I don't know if I can point to you. Yeah, a little bit. There you get the context of the situation. So remote sensing and information from that can support knowledge of the environmental context. So that's in step number 1. In step number 2, you can also identify different potential threats resulting from either a natural causes that happens also on top of everything in a conflict situation, as well as man-made hazard. So for instance, the river, the dam that I mentioned is an example of a man-made hazard caused by the conflict. And you can identify these potential situations. So before the dam, you identify, okay, there's a dam. If that dam breaks, what will happen with the cultural heritage along that river that will be flooded? This is a typical situation. that can be identified. And then you do analysis and evaluation of specific risk to the heritage sites derived from these previously identified dangers. So you see, the Earth observations can be a part of your risk management cycle for cultural heritage as monitoring, as a monitoring tool, and to do analytics. And here comes a very a third way of monitoring the Earth, you might see. I want to mention it specifically because, again, this is an example of an indirect impact that can happen from bombing and also from change of water, big change of water bodies, because that can cause ground motion. And if you have a building that is exposed to ground motion, that can be detrimental for that particular building. And this is, we have a service in Europe. It's a combination of Copernicus. So Copernicus is a huge Earth observation program in Europe with multiple satellites monitoring different at different wavelengths, at different resolution, etc. And one of the services they provide together with the European Environmental Agency is the European Ground Motion Service. You see here a picture of Venice. And as you know, we are afraid that Venice will sink into the water or the climate change will cause sea level to rise. So in order to manage this situation, a ground motion, to actually monitor how the ground is moving there, is very important. How fast is it sinking / the water is increasing? This is important to know, and it's something that can be used also for monitoring buildings that might be, you know, if you have a movement of the ground, you can have cracks in old buildings that can be very detrimental, for instance. And it cannot necessarily be seen, and this is interesting, I think. I was visiting San Francisco, going to the other side of the Atlantic here. And in San Francisco, they have skyscrapers. Now, what I knew, but because Norway is one of the expert countries to deliver this service. So I was told before I went there that actually they had seen the ground movements of this tall building had been sinking because the weight of buildings is pushing ground down. Now, because of that, we saw with, you know, this satellite product that there were building was sinking. And when I went to see actually the building that I wouldn't have thought of if I didn't know that there was cracks in the skyscraper that came from this ground movement. So you can discover small things from space that you don't necessarily will be observant enough in situ or on the ground. I'm just mentioning this to illustrate the power that Earth observations can represent for managing also cultural heritage.
Bente, sorry, probably some of our person who registered on the lecture can ask about, unfortunately they cannot, they are waiting in the room. Probably yes. You should permit.
Yes, I did. I just permitted them in now. So
okay, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see it. It's on in the side of my eyes. So now we are going to enter another type of support to cultural heritage management, and that's citizen science. Now, citizen science is a whole set of methods, including engagement and collecting data. So for on the engagement side, what I feel at least is a powerful methodology for people in conflict areas that might feel unable to do anything, to just feel hopeless and just stuck in a horrible situation. Citizen science as a method can allow any citizens, old or young, to contribute with some observations, for instance, and thus feel that they are doing something. It's a small thing, but it's in terms of engagement, I think it's an important way, and a way that both is rewarding for the individual citizen as well as providing information that can be used for better, in this case, for better management of cultural heritage in the difficult situations.
Okay. Bente, like say some in Ukrainian for students, okay?
Yes.
Я хочу тут вам тільки звернути увагу на цей принциповий момент про громадянську науку, бо вона в назві фігурує про це, то що це відносно нова методологія, яка передбачає залучення кожного. От, власне, Бенте зараз про цей дуже важливий аспект говорить, про те, що кожен може внести свій вклад в управління спадщиною, особливо в таких територіях, які зараз перебувають під загрозою, і це передбачає саме момент цієї залученості кожного. Як ключова база, на чому базується громадянська наука як така. Sorry, Bente, thank you.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Svetlana. Thank you. So citizen science is both engaging. I want you to notice that citizen science is both a means of engaging citizens and as a way of collecting data. And in the continuation, I will focus more on what to do with the data and some examples of what it is and how we can integrate it. So here you see, as I said, we can have, you can use the mobile phone, so you can go out in the street, take a picture of a building or a monument that you see is being destroyed. Actually, taking a picture of the monument or building while it's safe and sound has also a value. I know Katarina here, she was helping out to fill in information about where you have cultural heritage sites in locally in Kiev. So it's an important way of a useful method for collecting information about cultural heritage. In this case, this application that you see here is a little bit more fancy than just taking pictures. It's combined with sensors. You see on the right-hand side, there's a sensor spread around in Ukraine, measuring air quality and different other aspects, describing the environment around citizen science, cultural heritage. So, and all this information can be presented about the information about the environment can be then presented in this way and provide information. So you collect data and then in return you transform it into information. And you see here environmental crimes and it's important both to know what is the situation around your cultural heritage of building a monument, but as I said initially, that cultural heritage is also nature. So that's a direct influence, that's an direct impact on nature-based cultural heritage. On the right-hand side, you see a pie that shows the distribution of what kinds of environmental crimes what is affected. So you have greenery, you have what effects on the soil, radiation, industry, accidents, military waste, and water resources, and a whole bunch of other. The point is that you see that the collective information that citizens are gathering give us useful contextual information for cultural heritage management. Now, here are some pros, some strengths and some weaknesses, I would say, with using citizen science-based data. The advantage is that citizens can be mobilized quickly, so you can get timely information. You don't have to wait for somebody to mobilize and set up a sensor network or what have you. Citizens can go out directly and collect information. Citizens can also, because there are so many people living more evenly distributed, you can be filling gaps in the observation system. I'm sure you have many observation systems in Ukraine as a regular management of your country. And of course, cultural heritage, but with citizens, you can fill in gaps in this infrastructures. You can also benefit from local knowledge. This is very often overlooked in general. So it's not only, this advantage is not only valuable, appreciated in crisis and conflict times, it's also in general in any society appreciated. Local knowledge to better understand what's going on is important. And then you have redundancy. So redundancy means that you have a backup system, right? So it's, say, your national infrastructure for some reason breaks down, then the citizens can help to fill that and be acting like a redundancy system. And I don't know, I mentioned that I worked at the mapping authority, where in Norway we were very advanced in GPS or coordinate the location information. So today we have a Galileo and we have GPS. Now, just recently, so we are neighbors with Russia as well in Norway. And when we are having activities up north, where we are bordering to Russia, and having exercises, for instance, at the rocket launch place up north, the Russians are jamming the signal, GPS signal. So we are losing the location information. Location information is key, not only for observations, but for so many societal activities, right? But so having this redundancy is really important. We are vulnerable, all of us are vulnerable to having some of the infrastructure destroyed, and location is key. Anyways, this is just giving you some of the advantages of including citizen science in your in your toolbox for cultural heritage management. On the downside, we can mention that this is infrequent. So information, for instance, if you have a siren going on, you are suddenly being bombed, you cannot go out and collect information. This is unfortunately a situation that you are faced with. You can get infrequent information where you otherwise would like to have more continuous information. And its risks connected to this activity. It's risky because you suddenly can have an attack, and so it's not safe for that. It could be unsafe because buildings have been destroyed. The security around, the physical security that usually is there is not there anymore. So there are risks connected to collecting citizen science-based data. And then you have reliability. You have reliability in two senses. Reliability that when you are using citizen science, of course, the aggressor can also come in and disinform. We've seen that in natural disasters, unfortunately, that for some reason people are disinforming, so making it more unsafe in the situation. So that can happen. So you have to be particularly sensitive to that. And you can also, the reliability of citizen science in the sense that you're not quite sure if the individual citizen have been meticulous enough to correctly collect the data. So there are uncertainties in the data collection because of lack of knowledge on and quality. So those are the challenges related to using citizen science. Now, in summary, citizen science challenges. It relies on trust, and to create trust, openness and transparency are necessary. That's a requirement. But in an armed conflict, openness can be dangerous and misused by the aggressors, as I said. So one of the early websites that the ministry in Ukraine provided to collect citizen science data had to be closed down. It was open, and it was not safe to have that information open. So safety, as I mentioned, the safety of the citizens is an issue in a conflict, armed conflict situation. And the stability, so collecting, and this is another aspect. So when you are collecting data, the data needs to go to repositories. It cannot stay just on the phone, on your individual phone or in your home. It needs to be collected somewhere. That means that it needs to be communicated. And the channels, the infrastructure used for that communication can be a challenge. A simple thing as the electricity disappears for a long time. It can be a sabotage on the internet connection. Stuff like that might make it difficult to rely on a stable stream of data from citizens. And then capacity building, which we are doing now. Capacity building is never wrong. It's again and again in all fields I'm involved, capacity building is necessary. And new technology and methodology requires training, both of the professionals and the citizens alike. So the capacity building is often a, how should I say, a bottleneck, because you want to be able to use these tools, you are aware of it, right? And then, but then you don't have the exact knowledge that is needed for you to be able to use it. So we have been talking about Earth observations from space, from ground, and from citizens. This data that we are collecting has no value unless we transform it to information. So here you see the information value chain. So we need to collect the data. We need to store it somewhere. We just discussed that. And then some type of analytics is necessary for, well, more or less. It could be like just combining the different data types, but you also very often you need to do some types of analytics on that data. And at least the last is to visualize the data and give access to this information. So that is the value chain of data and information, sorry. Now, all of these different types of information and data I talked about, they need to be working together. Interoperability is a key word here to make this data into valuable, actionable information that can provide, for instance, the cultural heritage managers the means to make decisions. And here the recorded war crimes. Remember, I mentioned the ministry's website where this was available. This is a screenshot from a very early stage where where you actually could find this information. It's on the upper right side here. Then you have the Earth observations program, the Copernicus, that I have talked about, different visual data, visual from space, radar, and different wavelength type of information. And then you have Galileo, so positioning. You need to place, and I will talk, you will see, I will talk more about this now. Positioning as an important part of the metadata of your data. And then you have these local citizens generated and operated citizens networks, sensor networks. All of this needs to work together. And here comes some digital tools. I will look at the time. I need to go faster, I see. So digital tools, I will very quickly show you a couple of examples so that you can see it. So this is a digital tool that is Ukrainian. It's not, it's more like objects in general that is being collected here. That object that has been destroyed, restored, and the money that it cost. You see here that they have a form that you can fill in and contribute to this type of information. This is in general, it's not cultural heritage per se, it's objects in general. Now here is, and some of you might have seen this before, it's an online cultural heritage change detection tool that is doing very much the same. As I will turn off the sound now. You can log in and you identify, and I will come back to this, you identify who you are so that we know where the information comes from. We have a list here, you have a list of the cultural heritage sites that is that is identified in the map, and then you can actually provide information about what you observe through this this tool. So it's a background here is a map. We have, so based on an open source. So open source is something that I will never stop promoting. And it's for transparency, etc. You report, you can upload your an image, you put the metadata here, you know, so date and time, and then you describe what has happened to it. Here we are using an example from the site I mentioned earlier on from the ministry. So I will go right here so you can, oh, well, that was a little bit fast to the end. You can see that you put your the information you filled in the form. You will see it on the map here, and this will provide you with an overview of what is happening. So, what is needed? And I will look at the time. I have very little time. I will go fast through, but these slides will be shared with you, so you can refer to this later. So data sharing is key. Ukraine is a member of this intergovernmental organization, or group on Earth observation. Ukraine has agreed that open data should be open by default. There are some possibilities in point 2 here to restrict. You are now in Ukraine in a situation where it's absolutely within the data sharing principles to restrict sharing some of the data, open data. But importantly is to provide openly the data and metadata. So metadata is data about your data, the context of your observation. So we have data management principles to handle that. Remember, this is Earth observations. In the cultural heritage management consists of more than Earth observations, and I will come back to that shortly. We have some principles. It should be discoverable. You should be able to find the data. Therefore, metadata is important. It should be accessible. It should be possible for you to know where you can access this data. so that you can visualize it, etc., and then do analysis. The usability of it, it needs to be coded in the right way. So use standards, document properly, again, provide as much information you can around your observation. Provenance, you need to know where the data come from. This is about trustability, and also later you will see is for acknowledging and authentication. Quality control. As I said, sometimes you don't have the time to really do good quality control, but information that you haven't controlled it of the quality is important. So knowing the level of quality control is key here. And then you need to preserve your data so that it can be used again. You don't want to get the data to be lost. You need to verify the data, that is its authenticity and readability, etc. So that's a preservation. And curation should be a familiar word for you in the cultural heritage management. You need to review and processing the data that you have, and then also make sure that you have identifiers so you can acknowledge who provided that data. This is also important and gives meaning for citizen science as well. On top of that, we have open knowledge sharing. And you see here, I just want to point out that there are 11 principles. You find open access and open data included, but citizens and participatory science is part of the open knowledge statement. Again, every government member, and it's more than 115 countries, including Ukraine, that has agreed to this statement. So it's open software, open infrastructure, open hardware, and open education, as we are doing right now. I said that there are more data management principles. I'm talking about Earth observations. FAIR is science data and all types of data, basically. CARE principles are addressing responsibility, ethics, collective benefits, etc. So addressing those more soft values. And trust is addressing specifically the need of making the data that you collect sustainable and available over a long time. And I'm hurrying through now in looking at the time. So one of the new technologies that is useful, particularly for the situation of Ukraine, where you are in a conflict situation where you cannot necessarily, you have to be careful with whom you are sharing the data. Now, data spaces represent a technology that will allow you to have control over whom you are sharing the data. And there's a lot of activities going on in Europe, and Ukraine is part of this dialogue and part of this community. And I can just encourage you to visit this more to see how this can be of help for cultural heritage management. And in summary, we have been talking about in this lecture cultural heritage management situations, including being in a conflict zone. You have learned about different types of Earth observations, from space to ground to citizen science data. You have learned very quickly about the data management principle, different data management principles that will allow you to transform these data into information for your use. And last but not least, citizen science as a methodology for engagement, and also to enrich the information around your cultural heritage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bente. Thank you. Студенти, я сподіваюся, що у вас будуть питання. However, I would like also to say thank you from, maybe not from students, I hope they will say from themselves, but from myself, because for me it's really interesting, unknown in different cases, but however, very interesting topic. And it's very important to engage, to to learn more about this term, and of course I hope I can maybe go through this presentation later and different, I don't know, terms just to learn about it more, because it's very of course now we are in the war, and it's about strictly statement how it should behave with data, generally with data. However, we should know about it more, and with your lecture, it will be for me very useful. It's like get into a big world, I think.
Yes, thank you, Svetlana. I'm fully aware that this is a lot of new information that is probably difficult to digest. But I will make my slides available, and we can translate it so to Ukrainian, at least some of it, so that you can, some of the terms like Earth observations, etc., that could be useful to translate. But what we are discussing, Svetlana, also is, in Data4UA, is how the curricula at the universities can be, taking up these new tools that will be helpful for cultural heritage management. And that some of the cultural management experts should really have knowledge about, be willing and able to dive into the details here, because it will be a super powerful tool. I mean, there's a lot of literature also underlining this.
Yes, in our department, I'm sure we with Ivan, with Polina, will have a discussion about how this knowledge can be implemented, probably not in a separate course. I'm not sure that it's on this stage. However, in some terms on different disciplines existed now. So I'm sure we will do it as soon as it's possible.
Yeah, maybe a step-by-step integration, huh? It's
Yeah, it will be great. Okay, probably someone will have a question. Студенти, хтось має запитання, or some comments, so on? No? No, okay. So, Katerina or Ivan, unfortunately, I'm from phone, or Bente, and I can't make a screen of our meeting. So, будь ласка, включіть камери, щоб ми бачили вас, і щоб в такому вигляді могли зафіксувати, що ви тут були. So, Bente, can you make a screen? Yeah, okay.
Yes, I will turn on your cameras.
Turn on your cameras.
And a big smile.
Yeah.
See, maybe not everybody. There comes another one. Yeah. I'm taking
Another attempt.
I'm taking several.
Okay, thank you. Really, thank you. Дякую студентам, що долучилися. Я дуже сподіваюся, що це було для вас продуктивно, і обов'язково ми це перекладемо, і деякі теми з вами теж обговоримо. Зрештою, в нас ще будуть деякі активності в рамках цього проекту, тому це тема to be continued.
To be continued, yes.
Thank you, Bente. Thank you, Katerina.
Thank you,
Thank you. Bye.
Дякую, до побачення. Bye.
Дякуємо. Bye.
Bye.